to what SQL is and how to use it. And then we're going to do some like basically interactive workshops here. You'll get to try out SQL yourself and learn by doing. So I find that's the best way of doing things. So time-wise, I'm going to do very briefly about me, then SQL, and then we've got about 2 hours to do the workshop. So a little bit about me. This is my career in SQL. So I've worked at Ocado, Facebook, or Meta, depending on when you were there, GHGSat, who's a satellite company, and currently Stewart. And I've worked with a variety of different versions of SQL, including Neo4j, which is a graph database. And I've been working in data for 10 years overall.
We work with Stuart as well, I believe.
I know. Just. So outside of work, I'm involved in a charity called DataKind UK. What they do is they connect charities with data professionals, so scientists and data analysts, and help those charities use their data better. So like how can they bring, how can they do their jobs as a charity even better? So they do data dives and weekend events, which I've really enjoyed being part of. I'm also a director of the STEMettes, who helps girls, young women and non-binary people into STEM subjects. And in my free time, I really like cycling. So this is from a trip to Belgium earlier this year. So intro to SQL. So to understand SQL, you first have to understand a little bit about database. I'm not going to go into it too much, but effectively, the core thing you need to know about relational database, they store data in tables. So here we've got a list of books. You've got a few key things. You've got a unique ID for the book. You've got the title of the book. So here we've got Tale of Two Cities, Murder on the Orient Express, and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You've got the author, and you've got the publication date. One of the things that differentiates database tables from, say, a spreadsheet is anything in a column has to be the same data type. So, for example, the ID and publication date might be integers, and the titles and the authors might all be strings, but they all have to be the same, and it will cause an error if they're not. The reason they're called relational is because they have relations between them. So let's say you wanted to add in some information about price, but each book has multiple editions. They might have a hardback, there might be a softback, there might be a special edition, and you want to know the price for each of them. And rather than adding it into this first table where you'd have to add new rows or do something complicated with the columns, what you do is you create a relation. So you can see here, we've got the book ID, we've got the two book IDs here, hardback and softback. So we know Tale of Two Cities, you can get a hardback for 15, softback for £9.50. So yeah, so that's why they're called relational. So SQL is the query language for querying structured databases. So it's the main one used. If you're using any of these versions, these databases, the code you use will be effectively the same to query them. In very advanced functionality, there's some small differences, but 99% of what you write, you can write in one version and use in any other version of any other database. So as long as it's a SQL database, it works the same.
Sorry, and all of them are fee-based, and do we need to pay something to get them, all of them?
No. So Postgres, at least I'm pretty sure you can use for free. I think SQLite is also open source. The others, like Amazon Redshift or anything, obviously on the cloud, you pay per usage, but a lot of them have, like, if you're using it for learning or something like that, they have a free amount you can use. So there's options. Generally, unless you've got a lot of data, it won't be expensive either way.
Thank you.
So one of the really unusual things about SQL, if you know other programming languages, is it's declarative rather than imperative. So that means you're not telling the code, I want you to find this variable and filter it and search for it and get the result out. You're basically just saying what result you want. And the benefit of this, and partly why there's so many different versions of SQL backends, is it means the database itself can choose how to run your query. So it thinks about, okay, if you are querying, a billion rows of data, what's the most efficient way to run that? And it has, there's lots of people who actually work in depth on making that as efficient as possible. It means in most cases, the system will be optimizing your code rather than you doing it yourself. You just tell the system what you want. This means there's a really big benefit. If you've got structured data, but even a really large amount, you can query really quite big data sets efficiently if you're using the right tool. So, you know, even if you're doing something like 100 billion rows, which I did query at Facebook, you can still query it in a minute or so and get.
So does it do it efficiently? Like, is it, is it
I mean, so one of the ones on here, Presto, is the one to Facebook, and effectively it keeps everything in RAM. Is one of the things it does. I don't know. Like, I can explain things like MapReduce, which kind of makes sense, but I think Presto is like the next level on. But yeah. Cool. So that's the intro to SQL. So now I'm going to try SQL. So the first to think about before we start is how much SQL do you know? Do you know nothing at all? Do you know the basics? So you know like how to select stuff, how to filter it, how to order it? Do you know like a little bit more? So if you know some kinds of joins, like inner joins, or do you feel like you're quite advanced if you know the difference between inner join and outer join and a group by? So think about that in your head, but I'm going to make you switch seats in a moment. So we've got table numbers. So starting on the left here, this is table 1. So if you know nothing, come and sit over here. Table 2 at the back. They should also have post-it notes saying a number, if you know a little bit.
what if we're all table 1?
Then if that happens, we'll do some stuff. And then table 3, table 4.
So
If everything ends up table 1, then we can maybe merge table 4.
Anyone who is on the board?
no
one. Okay, all right.
There's still that table.
We will,
Yeah. We'll have 2 table 1s.
Beginners. Okay, so we're staying here.
They'll move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll post a note onto table 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we get your work up some stuff. That's a good speed.
Anna, you can come back if we stayed as the beginner.
That
That I like you. Honestly. Nomads.
Let me remove myself. Okay, so then I was going to say get into groups, but actually most tables are. So I might just suggest we do it by table. The idea of this is like work on the challenges together. So if you get a little bit stuck, you can ask each other first. So everyone and there's lots of you. So that's there we go. And now, as some of you already done, open your laptop. I'll tell you where to go. So for everyone, there's a website called SQL Bolt, which is basically a web-based SQL tool